Tonight we'll be talking about the revision of Policy 5120 and the administrative guidelines that go along with the policy, and also talking about our redistricting. So if you'd all stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance with me, I'd appreciate it.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Our agenda says that we're going to start with the work session, but I decided to start with public commentary instead. The board has set aside a 30-minute period for public comment. The maximum time for individual speakers is 5 minutes per person. The board expects personal decorum and factual information from the speaker. The president reserves the right to interrupt the speaker when the statement is too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, obscene, or if it interferes with the orderly conduct of the meeting. Public comments requiring no research, investigation, or review may receive response from the board and/or administration as appropriate. Do we have anyone signed up to speak?
No, we don't.
Are there any community members out there that would like to speak? No? Okay. Then we'll move on to master planning.
We have a number of items that we would like to cover tonight, and I'm going to talk about them in a linear manner, but I have no doubt that this will not be a linear discussion. We're going to talk about first policies and guidelines and the difference, because we're going to be using those terms frequently tonight, and I just want to make sure that they're reviewed for the public as well as for ourselves. Then we're going to look specifically at Policy 5120 and how it has been revised. Then we will look at transition guidelines that will get us from where we are today to the opening of school in August. Following that, we'll take a look at permanent guidelines to implement Policy 5120, and we'll look at also a form that parents can use that will initiate a transfer request. Following that, we'll look at our boundaries map and how the boundaries that are drawn impact students throughout the community. There will be some impact even in schools where there will be no closure. Following that, we'll look at an enrollment chart that has been generated from the conversation we've had about the policy. And then we'll look at how that enrollment chart affects the building schemes that we have had Mr. Mays present us before. So let's go back and talk about policies and guidelines. Board policy, which is something that we try to talk about as often as we need to, but oftentimes as a result of changing legislation or case law, policies speak to the community from the board, and it communicates a philosophical position of the board or an intent of the board. And this is in contrast to administrative guidelines, which are the administration's way of putting the policy into motion and making sure that the policy takes place, the intention is acted upon, and generally there are some ways that we can determine whether progress is made or not. It's almost like a goal and an objective. The goal is the overarching big statement of what we want to see happen. The objectives are the means by which you get to that goal. Last week when we had some conversation, we talked about the importance of coming to grips with the policy that, for the most part, will help us populate our buildings with students. And I think it was Jeff Slifer's comment, we really ought to look at that policy before we look at how we're actually filling our buildings. So in response to the questions that we had at the board meeting, we revamped our policy recommendation as well as guidelines and form, sent that out to the board on Friday, And based on some input that we had from various members as late as this morning, we have rewritten even what we sent out to be considered on Friday. Linda suggested that maybe we have 30 minutes set aside just to read what's been redone. You know, if you want to take a recess and read through these, that's your prerogative. But what I'm suggesting that we do is work through the changes in all these documents. But let's talk about the concerns that were expressed, because there were some common concerns. One of the concerns expressed was that we needed to pull apart. It wasn't clear whether it was a student or a teacher, school-initiated placement of a student or a parent-initiated placement of a student by means of a transfer. Wasn't quite clear the difference between the caps and the targets. It wasn't clear about choice, about parental choice in the matter. We had to go back and look at how we might better express that. But one of the interesting comments came, and this was something agreed upon, that this seemed pretty officious, that it was not inviting, that it didn't appear to be friendly to the people it was meant to speak to, which would be
touchy-feely.
the community and the parents. So we have revamped that a bit, and we've also emphasized the importance that we place on giving parents the prerogative to choose what's in the best interest of their own children by means of schools. So, questions on the concerns that were raised? I do appreciate all the comments that
Basically, you have just three common threads: parent choice versus school choice as far as, or school need for transfer, the target versus the enrollment cap, the difference between those numbers, and parental choice. Those are
the three dominant ones that we got from just about everybody. Now there were some other small ones that different people had suggested. We've tried incorporating those in our changes too.
I would like to say to the rest of you, yesterday I spent the day, Mary Jo and I are working with this group of young leader in a leadership academy, and we met with some state representatives, and they kept talking about keeping out of language political hot potatoes like choice and open enrollment, framing it in a way so that it was understandable, but that it didn't conjure up immediately something that we might not want it to conjure up. So I appreciate that you kind of smoothed out the language so that everybody can reach it.
And it's still a draft. It's still a draft. We would like to. The whole purpose of this is to bring a recommendation to the board next week, but it's a draft right now, and I have no doubt that it will be revised between now and then. But if we could look at that first paragraph, there's generally the opening paragraph of a policy should be a pretty important statement, and this does sum up some of the thoughts. There may be better ways of saying it, but this sums it. What I heard, and that was
What happens if we read it so the public will?
That's what I was planning. Yeah, that's what I was just about to do. With a focus on the best interests of students and the best use of the resources of the Richmond Community Schools, the Board of Trustees will periodically determine school attendance areas for all students while supporting a process that provides parents an opportunity to select the district school that best meets the needs of their children. That honors the thread about parental choice, as well as softening that beginning. The second paragraph simply expands on the first, and it starts with the corporation. The corporation shall expect the students within each area to attend the school so designated unless grade level enrollment in the school has achieved enrollment capacity or a transfer request is approved. Elementary students seeking enrollment in a school that has achieved capacity will be offered choices within the district for enrollment options. We eliminated respective middle school because we felt like that was too limiting.
I had actually scratched that.
Yeah,
in
I
my
had
mind.
too.
Yes.
But I think a definition on capacity is important.
everywhere that I went through the old 5120, or that, I can't say old 5120, the 5120 version from last Friday. I circled the word capacity because is that going to be defined as the cap, not the target?
It is defined as the cap.
It's defined as the cap. So, but that cap, are we going to define that differently on whether it's open to the district or open to transfer?
Open to the district or open to transfer?
Well,
What do you
within
mean
the
by that?
school
Yes.
district boundaries versus open to the transfer from out of the district into another district. Those are actually two different caps. Correct?
I'm still not getting, we have the grade level caps in every building, at every grade level. And you're saying that, your question is, do we have a different one for in-district students?
We have well, I haven't read through what the revisions were since last Friday, but we were going to limit the transfers into another school district at the target cap, not the enrollment cap.
We are going to try to do that.
So I guess I just want to make sure as we go through this that cap, what cap that is, that it's clearly defined. So whether we
And
use
that,
another...
that is very clearly defined in the administrative guideline.
Okay, well, I haven't read the administrative guidelines yet.
Okay. The problem that we'll have in the first year is that we already know we're going to exceed in some classrooms the target in the first year. What we'll be doing is working towards that target all through the first year and into that second year, so that the difference between the target and the cap is that we've reserved those seats for kids who may move into the district. Right now, we can't do that in all cases. Now, one of the things that we did in the next section was to expand our list of definitions, and we've actually redefined. Enrollment is simply the registration of a student in a school building. And how did we come up with that definition? That's more in alignment with Webster's dictionary.
Yeah.
That's all. Reassignment is where we are attempting to clarify. Reassignment is more of a school-initiated replacement or reassignment of a student. The registration of a student in another building due to overcapacity within a grade level at the home school, placement in an alternative program, or placement in another school in the best interest of the student. You know, we're going to have an alternative school. We have Hibbard, which is a location of programs, not necessarily in the same school building. So we may have some placements that would be initiated by the school, and those would be reassignments. But the next piece, transfer, is an assignment, or pardon me, a parent request to register a student within the school district to another school building.
I like that.
That's much clearer.
Well, I thought there really needed to be a separation there as well.
Yeah.
And if you don't see any yellow, that means we didn't do anything today. So we didn't touch the justification of those changes. I could still read it if you want me to.
Yeah.
Okay.
I should have.
Superintendent shall periodically review existing attendance areas and recommend to the board such changes as may be justified by stability in a student's education experience over time, considerations of safe student transportation and travel, convenience of access to schools, financial and administrative efficiency, the need to maintain racial or ethnic balance, the effectiveness of the instructional program, a wholesome and educationally sound balance of student populations, H, other considerations as a result of restructuring. We've made a few changes today as a result of the above changes. With a transfer approval, the superintendent may place a student in a school other than that designated by the attendance area when such exception is justified by circumstances and is in the best interest of the student. Circumstances under which consideration will be given to the request for a transfer of a student from the school or of his or her attendance area to another school within the school district include but are not limited to the following: child care located in the requested school's area. B, a move into the requested school area is pending and can be documented. C, financial or family circumstances require the student to live in the requested school area. D, the student wishes to finish the school year at the same school where he or she started the year. E, the student was affected by the 2012-13 redistricting and wishes to remain at the requested school. Obviously, that will come out in a year. F, the student has a sibling attending the requested school. G, we have eliminated because we refer to that in several other places. G, the new G, attendance at the requested school is in the best educational interest of the student. H, extenuating circumstances documented with building administrator. There may be others, but those were the ones that we could foresee.
I was thinking that when I was looking at the transfer list of students, we have a lot of them that have family, and they're actually employees of the building that have requested the transfer. So I guess just, was that something that should be, there's actually quite a few, it was 15, 16, 17 students or something like that if I remember. Was that something that we should have listed as a reason, as a justification?
We could put that in there.
Can you say that for me again?
Employees.
Employees that
Okay.
don't live in that home district school,
But they teach there.
but they want to take their child to
Okay.
They do put it in other school policies, I mean, around.
I'd like to encourage that one, actually, as much as possible.
Linda?
Keep it.
So what is the reasoning for even having this in our policy?
What are you getting
The
at?
list of possibilities, you mean?
If a parent requests that a student be transferred, why is it important to have to give a reason?
Well, if you're thinking that we should have an unlimited access to any school for any parent.
If we have
it's-
an open seat,
Let me think about that answer, because in the old days, we wanted to make sure that we were careful about the balance of the district, that we would have a reason to say no if we had to say no.
but wouldn't the
list before.
the
would do
list
that.
before that take care of that? I'm just trying to push us a little bit to move out of the old model into maybe a new model.
Right.
So that, maybe you can't answer that right now, but I was just wondering.
If you go to the form that we've created, the form does the form emphasizes these same areas or these same reasons, and I think what it does, it demonstrates that there's compelling reason to approve or to get very serious about this transfer, particularly if the seats don't appear to exist. I mean, it could be that we have that we have met that target, and could there be a compelling reason here to go beyond the target when the cap hasn't been met? Because we're trying to keep those seats available for local students. Is there a compelling reason presented through this that would cause us to say, we'll go ahead and allow that placement?
Pat?
I mean, do we always say no when the target has been met? And I think we'd hate to have our hands tied on that.
If you read Thank you, Kelly. If you read the opening paragraph that says, provides parents an opportunity to select the district school that best meets the needs of their children, and then you come down to this paragraph looks as though we've taken back control over the parent and the parent's choice. And I think we just have to be careful of the philosophy we're putting forward. If we really believe, I don't know that I have concern about listing some possibilities for reasons in case that needed to be, except I'm not sure why. But this statement seems to say to me, well, we might let you have a choice, but we're going to take control over how it goes. Wouldn't the targets and the caps and our using them, wouldn't that be enough of a control?
I would think so, or maybe there needs to be some kind of a statement that states that the superintendent has,
the final say?
yeah, I mean, but I agree. I think it does look as though that, okay, we want parents, we want you to make, to have the opportunity to select, but then here are the guidelines that we want you to follow for doing that. And so I would really like for you to think about that, because
But and this is down the road, would we need that kind of data to make decisions?
That's what I was wondering about, but that's on the
Later,
form.
later.
Well, we could ask
Not
why.
anything.
It's on the
yeah,
form.
I think it's okay to
Yeah.
say, why did you select this school, and let them, I think that's perfectly appropriate. And I would think we would want that information, but I don't know that it has to be through our choices.
And I'm wondering, I'd like, a policy should last a while. We shouldn't have to change it year after year after year. And what happens in 2 years when we have elementary schools with themes and foci, and you really do want matters of choice. There may be people who are
These
beginning to
wouldn't
choose that,
apply.
and choosing it because of academic reasoned and or program, not because of the logistics. So does the policy allow that to happen?
Well, let me ask you
It does
this.
say, in the best educational interest of the student.
So let's just take ESA for an example. So how does ESA fit with, I mean, when do those parents have to ask for a transfer?
They have,
They have, and
unless
so-
they were grandfathered in from Discovery.
Okay, so do they have to then specify which one of these reasons why they're asking for that transfer?
Well, I don't know that they have in the past, because we haven't had this policy used like that. But they would in the future. And so would any other magnet school that we might create.
Is there any reason why you would want to prioritize? I mean, do you want, because the policy would, the only reason to have that in there is at some point you might want to prioritize what is more important reason to transfer over the cap or over the target than another. So I'm not sure if we need it in there either. But I think
Well,
you might
let's-
need to think about that as far as.
Let us reflect on that. We'll take that under consideration.
At least make the paragraph introducing those a little more parent-centered rather than school-centered.
Some
Move
might-
out of your comfort zone, Dr. Borf.
Yeah. I didn't realize I was in one.
Given the last 6
If
months.
you are, you're holding on tighter than anybody I've ever seen in my life.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I can't imagine.
Are there any other concerns about that policy?
I guess I only have one, and I kind of raised the question at our last meeting. The enrollment cap piece of it. I almost think it would be nice to have the enrollment cap numbers in the board policy, because, and we can put a clause in there, extreme exceptions approved by the superintendent or something, but I just think if we have the cap numbers in policy with extreme emergencies or exceptions approved by you, it sends clearly a much stronger message what the board feels about what we want to limit class size to. And it also says that we recognize the importance of the smaller classrooms, and it may require us to add an additional staff, and we are aware of that. That's my only concern with the 50. Well, I had two concerns with 5120. One is, as my email to you, I'd like to have separated the transfers, which you've done. The other one is I really would like to see, in my opinion, the cap numbers listed in the board policy, and give you a clause that all exceptions to that. I don't have a problem giving you the authority to go beyond that, but I want it to be for a very solid reason that we're going to exceed that classroom cap size.
Well, how do you feel about that?
I think I'm leaning that way, with a statement that precedes it, giving a philosophical reason for doing it. A policy has to really be a big picture, and we can make that a big picture statement if we say what you just said, recognizing that classroom size is vital to student academic achievement. This board, and not this board, but then
well, it would be
the
the Board of Education, whatever given time, supports that policy.
What do you think about that?
I would respectfully disagree with that.
I'm really concerned about that, too.
I don't think there's anything wrong with the balcony level type statement
Right.
about class size is very important. You have 91 classrooms, and you're going to have grade level caps at for every single room per grade level. Do we also go into the high school with that kind of grade level cap? Is it my responsibility then to come back, and I think it would be if it were policy, to tell you every time we've exceeded a classroom cap? Boards across the country have tried getting that out of their contracts when they have bargained with teachers for the very same thing because of the inflexibility created. Now, the beauty of having it in the guidelines is that when it becomes unrealistic, you can work just in time as opposed to waiting until the next board meeting to make a change or reporting it at that time. So I would encourage you to think about perhaps a statement saying how important those class sizes are, and simply say that you would expect the guidelines to be published and adhered to unless circumstances would indicate or direct otherwise.
Well, I think someplace in there, it should show, if you don't put the cap sizes, some kind of a statement, like you said, that we as a board do value class sizes and that we have listened to what our parents have said. Because this is the public document. Administrative guidelines aren't always so public.
That's right.
So that's...
But you could make that, though, part of the policy and say, we think it's important, and we expect the guidelines to be set forth in this.
That would
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
And you know what? Maybe one of us ought to call the Indiana School Board Association and kind of see what they say, because if they have some guidelines for helping boards write policy.
When I Googled it, I saw it was both ways in a lot of districts.
Yeah. That's what you'll find.
But I really,
What does the data really say about class size, though? Isn't that mixed, too?
I'm sorry?
It is.
So the data about how class size matters is kind of mixed also. I mean, I'm not saying we don't believe in it. We do, because we don't want it to go through the roof, but I think there's some mixed.
Yeah,
Except
but you
that the
also have
parents
to
asked.
look at
Oh, I know.
our student population right now.
Absolutely.
With the number of free and reduced lunch, and you also have to look at what we're trying to do with student achievement.
Yeah, I think so, too.
I understand.
Well, I think the other thing that I was thinking about is I'd hate to be the teacher in the classroom that gets asked, can you take another student, or
Yeah.
the principal in the building, because they're honestly being put on the spot.
But if the caps are very well known and published, I mean,
So
you can call for that, I think.
I guess I would still vote to have the cap numbers in there.
How does that affect the principal or the teacher who will be asked to take one? Oh, you'll still have that.
Yes.
Well, but I mean, I guess I'm thinking of the way it has been in the past. I mean, we've found classes that I've had administrators and teachers tell me that, yes, I felt sorry for them, so I accepted them, although it put my classrooms high. You know,
Sure.
it puts them on the spot. And I think for us to I think the target, I could almost argue that I would even like to see the target numbers and cap numbers lower. So, you know, with the cap number of 21 kindergarten students to exceed that, I think you should be involved with that. I mean, one of the questions as a board member that I have all the time, what are our class sizes? I mean, how many times have we asked that question? And it's not easy for us to get that
So
information.
you can't know at
but-
any one given minute, though. That's the
Yeah.
thing that
But-
change.
but-
It seems to me in the administrative guidelines, we have addressed that concern, though. I mean, I'd like to see it lower as well, but as far as going to the point of transferring students or reassigning students to adhere to these caps, you'll see in the chart we present later, that's exactly what we're proposing. Because right now, in some of those buildings, you will have some classrooms that exceed the cap. And we're looking at those as having to be reassigned. In fact, that will be the only way to balance your enrollment in the buildings.
So if there is, in the policy, if there is reference made to the caps that are in the administrative guidelines, does that give us a little bit of?
That gives us some latitude, and it also presents accountability.
It just needs to be out front, and I don't think the administrative guidelines are out front, so.
Well, let's go back over that then. We want in the policy to make sure that it's written as to how the board feels about class size and the limits on class size. Without putting the numbers in there, we will refer to the administrative guidelines for the numbers.
That's
The
right.
existence of caps.
Well, you
That's-
can,
I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page before we move on.
And you know, eventually, when this gets to the electronic format, your guideline will come up, or your policy will come up, and the very next click
The
puts you
guidelines.
with your guidelines, and the very top of the guideline has the targets and the caps.
So that'll be as much available to the public as the policy.
Yeah, really, with our new format, it's much easier to get to the guidelines.
so that you can't, okay, because you used to be, they were hard to find.
Yes.
Well, they come with the same number, and so, well, anyway,
Okay, so you got the.
If,
I do have that.
if it's in the guidelines, which it is, the caps, it gives you more flexibility on an immediate basis than if it were in policy. I want to be clear on that.
Correct. I don't anticipate having to go over the caps at any point, but if we had an enrollment burst of some kind, which would be a nice problem to have,
Well,
There-
that's, I
there may
think
have
that,
to be,
my argument would be is if we put in there, you had the authority, if it was deemed necessary to exceed that, then it solves everybody's, it still would, to me, would give you the flexibility that you need. It just says, from a board perspective, this is the cap that we want. I'm not interested in tying your hands. I don't want a phone call on 91 classes, but it just shows the importance of it, in my opinion, so. I'll see the final draft.
okay.
I'll see your recommendation next week.
Okay.
Shall we go on to the guidelines? The guideline it has been changed from last Friday's as well. The enrollment targets and caps has not. Basically, the enrollment target and cap says enrollment per classroom will be guided by a target class size, and when the targeted enrollment has been reached, transfer requests will not be considered, as the seats between the target and the cap are to be reserved for students in the school's attendance area. Once the grade level cap has been reached, any additional enrollments will be determined by the superintendent. What we are envisioning right now is that when that classroom gets to the cap, then
That's it.
they're going to have to seek enrollment elsewhere in one of the other district schools.
And this gives you enough reason for a transfer refusal by number.
Yes.
And it really
Yes,
does.
it would. At kindergarten, the target is 19, the cap is 21. First grade, 20 is the target, cap is 22. Second grade, the target is 23, the cap is 25. Third grade, the cap is 23, target is 23, cap is 25. Fourth grade, the target is 25, the cap is 27. For fifth and sixth grades, targets are 25 and the caps are 27. Now, the change that we have made is consideration for transfer request before target is met. If there is a consideration, this happens to be at the beginning of the school year. It could be within the school year, though. I guess I could concede that this would be within the school year. Does the student have a record of good attendance? Does the student have a record of good grades? Does the student have a record of tardiness? Does the student have a good record of record of good behavior? Those are all considerations if we're looking at extenuating circumstances.
Well, I guess my question there is, why should it matter?
Well, it would matter particularly during the school year if it would be in the best interest of the receiving class to decline that request. At the beginning of a school year, it's not quite the issue that it is 6 months into the school year when the chemistry of that class is so important. But
Well, maybe
that was our thought.
maybe you should state that then. Because, so my concern is that in our policy, we are giving parents an opportunity to select the district school that best meets the needs of their children. But here, we are judging their children on those criteria. That bothers me.
I'm having trouble with that too, because there's situations that arise where a kid just needs to transfer. Doesn't have anything to do with, I mean, he might be having bad attendance because of the situation he's in, where if he could transfer and live with aunt, grandma, or somebody else, the situation would be better and the attendance would improve.
Is
Or
it the principal
tardiness,
that
or-
has the, it's the principal, right, who takes this into consideration?
Right.
Well, no, it wouldn't be the principal, for it's beyond the target, though.
If it goes beyond the
Before
target.
target is
or
met.
be-
This
no,
says
this is
before
before the
target.
target.
This says before.
This is before.
But then how does this
Okay, yeah,
list
before, I didn't see that,
connect to the list in the policy?
or changed.
Because we've said there, I mean, if we leave that list in the policy, the justification, child care, I mean, the child care decision, I mean, doesn't, those two just didn't connect for me.
Probably override that.
Yeah. So
Well,
why have
there's
it?
things that just happen in families' lives. I mean,
Yeah.
Well, I think we need to decide whether we are truly going to provide some opportunities for our parents to have a choice of where they would like for their child to go to school, given if we have empty seats, or if we're going to be the ones to control whether or not a child goes to a specific school. So
See, I
we're
just-
kind of having conflicting.
Yeah, messages.
Well, and I also want to, I don't want to give any indication to the public that we're embarking on new territory here. We have, how many? 200-some students
7 or 5 or 6.
that we have allowed to transfer with the control that we have so far. So we've been very open. We're simply wanting to structure that formally. And these have been some considerations that we've had in the past. I don't know how many we've turned down on the basis of this. In most cases, what we have found is that some students who have been denied continuing transfer, it's been on these, with these concerns.
From the school corporations that I've checked with from around the state, and there are a number of them that have this already in place. It's for external transfers moving in.
Yeah.
And it's because just chemistry, not only in the school that they may be going to, but chemistry in the district, plus other issues when it comes to,
How do you turn somebody down if they were moving into town?
beg your pardon?
How do you turn someone down if they're moving in?
It's
We've
for,
done that.
it's primarily for those who aren't moving in.
Oh, I
who
see what
want
you're
to,
saying.
Lack of a
Opposite.
better expression, they've worn out the welcome in another place and
Outside
decided
of the
one-
school district?
Outside. Like I said, it was an external transfer from students who want to move into another district, another school district,
I'd hate
while still living in the other.
Boy, I'd hate to have that on paper and be accused of
Yeah, I don't-
that kind of discrimination. Would be really scary to me.
Well, you also have to remember that sometimes we have requests for transfer to avoid negative consequences
Yeah,
of
we
poor
want-
choices.
Yeah, we
Absolutely,
want choice,
I
but we
understand.
don't, we also
Well,
want
but
stability.
individual poor choices is what you're.
That's what
is that
I'm
what
saying.
you meant? Right
Yes,
there?
students have made poor choices. They have chosen to be insubordinate. They've chosen to be defiant. They've chosen to be tardy. They've chosen, a number of issues. And so when the consequences have caught up with them, then you find, well, it's time to choose to go to another school. And we're wanting to be able to say no to those kinds of requests. If it's not in the student's best interest to transfer, we would like to be able to say,
And that's what I was
Is that not a reason
that's what I was
enough right
saying.
there?
Can't you make a statement like that in our policy that the superintendent
it
has?
there does need to be a statement in the policy, as
Yeah.
we've talked, that some
Yeah.
transfers are not in the student's best interest.
Yeah.
Well, because
That's-
when I had read the other version, I had wrote beside, or commented beside it, maybe considerations beyond the cap should be more emergency, extreme cases, unusual circumstances. That's kind of where I was, that was where I was going.
And that's almost policy rather than these
That-
kind of guidelines.
Yeah, that's not so much.
Well, and honestly, the things that you've listed here would be certainly appropriate for after the school year has begun, because that's usually when those kinds of things happen.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and we want to be open, but we also want kids to have stable. And so
Sure.
if we see, these bounces happening for reasons, like you said, avoiding behavior.
I'm concerned as much about the student coming in as I am about the students in the classroom.
Exactly.
That needs to be certainly a consideration also.
Well, isn't that why we should have those considerations there then?
But maybe
More
differentiation between the beginning of the school year and within the school year.
And maybe that's where that other list goes, that we were wondering if it belongs in the policy. Maybe that's some reason, some considerations will
We'll
be
be
given
rethinking that, too.
before
No, I
the,
think you're right, Steve.
before the target for these kinds of.
And I'm this toss-up with it, and that is, do I think that we need this? Yes. Do I think we don't? But as you were saying, I think this is going to be something that is going to be more directed when you have someone who wants to transfer in January because of, as I said, the ramifications of behavior have called up to him, and now it's here. And personally, I just don't want to take on in January somebody else's problems.
Although we do.
They're
Yeah.
our own, too. They're our
I'm
own.
talking about somebody who's not in our system already. I just have that great concern of the disruption.
But
of-
again, you can't turn someone down who moved from Tennessee in the middle of the year, and then you go and you call their school and they say, oh gosh, yeah, that's a handful. You can't say, sorry, we're not taking you.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize you had changed you've actually broke that considerations out into two different categories
Yeah.
now. The older version just had beyond, but now you have actually before and beyond.
Yeah.
So my comment about the emergencies, extreme circumstances, and those types of things would be more appropriate down in.
Yeah, the beyond. Yeah.
Do we need,
Well, and the before school
give
starts.
time
and
for
the-
you to read through this, since it's 4 pages and it's...
Well, that, or just
Just go
continue
through
to
it?
show the
Yeah.
patience.
Okay.
Yeah. One of the things to think about is administrative guidelines are almost practices that we will hold you and other people accountable for. If we, so when I look at this, what this is saying is that any transfer request before the target is met, they have lots of due diligence to do. Is that what we mean, and is that what we intend to do? That may be true after the school year has started, but not at the beginning, and that could be
Right,
clarified.
and that, I think that's what he's going to look at.
We'll work on that. Now, one section that we've added, what I've tried to do is to take a look at A, B, and C, enrollment, reassignment, and transfer. And so we've added a section on just enrollment, period. And we have one, or A, students seeking enrollment or parents seeking to enroll their children in the Richmond Community Schools may do so by contacting the central office or the office of the principal in the building serving the attendance area in which they reside. That's probably the simplest form of enrollment. Out-of-district students seeking enrollment or parents seeking to enroll their out-of-district children may do so with no tuition assessment if they meet the following conditions. They have to be a resident of Indiana, which is a major issue here in Richmond.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. They have to enroll before the, Bob, is it the second Friday of September?
Yes.
And 3, the building or grade level into which they seek enrollment has capacity. Number 4, they've not been expelled from another school district. And 5, they meet all medical requirements expected of local students, meaning immunizations.
Is the number 4, isn't that a law? Should the law be stated there?
We could cite that.
Actually, the medical requirements is a law as well.
Yeah.
There are quite a
Indiana
few.
code. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
So if I read this correctly, if someone from out of our district want to enroll, they would not be allowed to enroll after the second Friday of September.
No, they could enroll, but it would not be tuition-free.
Without tuition assessment. So how is this statement different from the one we just talked about?
What one are we?
Consideration for enrollment for transfer request before target is met.
That's
Shouldn't
within
that
the school
consideration for enroll, now that I've reread this, shouldn't that we just talked about go down under transfer request?
I'm sorry, Pat, I didn't follow that.
If he's breaking out the 3 areas of getting kids into school, enrollment, reassignment, and transfers, and here he's explaining what enrollments is, then the discussion we just had about the caps, et cetera, consideration for transfer request before target is met, shouldn't that fit under the transfer section so that it's very clear about when, you see what I'm saying?
I understand. So we've got,
We have the building grade level into which they seek enrollment has capacity.
But no, I'm not, I'm just saying, well, okay.
She went backwards.
I went backwards. This stuff right under these enrollments, that fits very smoothly under the section that you've created, transfers down here. Right? It's explaining when we will take transfers and when we won't.
Oh, okay, you're ahead, way ahead.
Oh,
Okay.
I'm speed reading.
Behind.
Evelyn Wood, isn't that what that is? Speed read? Only Dixie and I would.
I thought you were there where we,
Oh, I'm sorry.
on enrollments.
Sorry.
Okay. Maybe that would be a good place to have that.
Sorry. Never mind.
We'll
Might
discuss
fit
it.
in both places. I mean, just because you're talking about the beginning of the year enrollment, but it's still a transfer, isn't it?
Yeah.
Technically.
We are talking about transfers there.
Yeah.
Do you have
Doesn't matter when they sign up, they're a transfer.
this number 2, before the second Friday of September? Is that ADM day?
Yes.
Why don't you
But
just put ADM?
how is, will that be impacted since we're going to have 2 ADM days next year?
It may be.
So why wouldn't you
There
put
may be.
ADM and then be safe?
Well, because
They need a date, people need a
that,
date.
no one knows what ADM is.
Because
beyond
if they move
administrators.
in after the first ADM day, then we pick them up for the second ADM day, right?
Has that been set in law yet?
I don't believe
No.
it's been set in law, but it's one of the things.
It's
in-
one of, that's some, it is being considered, and that would have an impact on that.
That would
on
change
piece.
things.
And I don't think we have talked about, I mean, we don't have any guidance just right now on how to set tuition charges with that law. That would have, because there's a separate, a whole separate policy on that.
The building grade level to which they seek enrollment has capacity, and that's total cap, not target.
Wouldn't it just be the grade level rather than building?
It would be the grade level.
The grade level, but
Yeah,
we're
but you'd
talking
wanna
the
say
the
building,
cap
too,
number,
just-
not the.
Buildings.
I mean, it would need to be the target number that. it
They're
can't
out of
exceed.
district. Well, let me think about that. They're out of district.
Because we're
We're
limiting the
talking
district
about
students to the
target.
target number.
It'd have to be under the target.
It would have to be under the target according
Yeah,
to
so that'll have to be, we should change that to the target enrollment capacity number. Because I don't think they should have any more right than someone that lives in another district within the school system.
That would make it more specific.
Right, they wouldn't be able to enroll if we are at our target.
enrollment.
But if we're before the target, then they would.
They would
Because we
be
just stopped another student within our district from transferring because we were at that same target number.
Okay. Writing policy by committee is fun, isn't it?
Unless we're at the high school, and we don't have targets and capacity and caps
No.
in the high school.
Well, then we could say, you could break that out, high, 2 categories.
Intermediate and,
You see, there's nothing simple. I was asked today, make it simpler.
it isn't.
It doesn't get simple.
Well, it's pretty simple, it's just that it is a different operation.
Well,
at the high school.
writing by committee is
That part's not simple.
You could just simply say,
Not fun.
with the secondary, which would only be, since we changed their format from, would we just term secondary then, 9 through 12?
because we don't have caps and
No, it'd be 7.
targets.
Still would,
through 12.
so the definition still would be 7 through 12. So then you just have to say it at the high school,
But we don't
as
have,
long as it has capacity.
but we don't have targets and caps for 7th and 8th grade.
Yeah, we do, don't we?
No,
No.
5
Oh,
and
no, we
6.
don't.
5
So
and
then you
6.
could use secondary.
Okay, moving on to the reassignments. The only thing we added today was the per policy 5120 in C.
Okay.
Okay, now let me catch up here. We just did paragraph A on the other version, right?
No, we're on page 2, reassignments.
Right there.
He just retitled it.
Enrollment. E. Okay.
It used to be called enrollment requests.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
That was a change.
Should we say that a student unable to enroll in his or home
Reassignment.
homeschool due to overcapacity, should we use due to grade level,
Overcapacity at grade level.
Caps.
yeah, just to keep the
It
language?
says grade level later will be granted if the grade level.
Due to grade level caps. May indicate a preference for transferring back.
See, B says they're considered a permanent school student, but if they want to go back to their home school. You might want to put home school, home area, just to be clear.
Any other comments? Okay, transfers, instead of transfer requests, we just put transfers to be consistent.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to catch up between the two. On E that you striked with Discovery School, but we don't, I was wondering on ESA, how do you, I mean, you consider ESA students permanent students, don't you?
We do.
But you don't feel like it's required then or necessary once they're...
We have not. I mean, we just didn't have that conversation. Your thought is maybe we should put...
Well, I didn't know if, I don't think it's needed, but I
You
didn't,
talk
I mean,
about
the
it
whole...
later on in the
in
transition.
the transition policy or the transition
Right.
Yeah,
guidelines,
practices, I
we
think
do
so.
we
Talk
do
about it
reference
there.
that.
Yeah. Under 2.
Okay. I'll wait till then.
For the transfers, the only thing we added, well, no, we haven't added anything since you received that.
But don't you think, well, adequate space in the requested grade level to accommodate the student, that's where I guess I was considering putting that statement that you had on the front page.
The 4.
Yeah, transfer request
Good
before
attendance,
target is
good
met.
grades.
Well, that's what I said, below target number is my note.
Yeah, we'll give that some consideration. On the stipulations, we did eliminate the adequate space at the requested grade level to accommodate the students because it's been stated in other spots. Aside from that, everything's the same.
Well, and C really is, does this stipulations fit only under the transfer request?
Yes.
Okay, that's a little unclear. We might want to somehow indicate that the stipulations go with the transfer request. See what I mean? But paragraph C really does just state in a narrative form what you stated in 1, 2, 3, 4 on the front page.
So it could just be titled transfer stipulations or something like
Yeah.
that.
On transportation, we did revise because on a reassignment, in all the situations of
Yep.
reassignment, we would be providing transportation if the students are not in a walking area. On C, we took out what we added. And basically, it's the same as it used to be. Transportation will be the responsibility of the parent. Other requests for service will be considered.
That's when it's parent preference.
Correct.
Okay, give me a second to catch up, guys. Please.
What we've tried, I don't know what you're reading from, Jeff, on what we've tried to do is include the language that we provided on Friday and highlight it with language that we changed today.
Well, and that's what I'm going, I got notes written based on Friday's draft.
Okay.
So I'm trying to figure out the categories and where they're changed. And
Okay.
I'm just not as fast a reader as you guys.
So, reassignment, they do get transportation?
They do.
Okay. That isn't stated up here, is it?
Because those, no, it's a brand-new statement.
Where is it?
It's now, right here.
Right there.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
I can read faster than you. Just kidding.
Procedural guidelines.
We have changed that, instead of just, I don't even remember what it was for, what it was before, but it's now procedural guidelines for annual transfer requests. And we go through, and I don't know that we've changed too much until you get to D. And we felt like we had to be specific that, indeed, that requests will be considered after the reassignments have been made, because if the reassignments have been made, that may fill the
Sure.
grade levels to capacity.
Makes sense. The only comment I might make about format is maybe the main headings, like enrollment targets and caps, should be underlined so that the parts under it, see what I'm saying? So I was all confused about stipulations, where it fit, and
Well, you know what?
transportation and where it
This,
fit.
the format will be changed when it goes to Neola.
Oh,
They will,
okay.
they will reformat, and then we'll probably have to reformat their format.
Oh, okay, okay.
So they generally do some different typing,
Okay.
and we'll have to respond to that once it comes back. I agree with you. And some of these, we could lift out for pamphlets and
Sure.
that type of thing.
How are parents going to be informed of all these dates?
Will be, once everything is set, they'll be informed through a lot of different communication. Newsletters, websites, we're going to be
Can we use one
blanketing.
call for
Actually,
something like that?
specific letters home.
Yeah, because that's going to be hard to keep track of.
Yes, it is.
And you may have already answered this, and I missed it. On D, page 4, where you strike to 1, students displaced from the home attendance area. Was it because in the past we've given them the right to, if they want to go back to their home school district, that they'll be put on a waiting list, or are we?
This simply wouldn't be a priority basis for a request for transfer,
Well, that's so this is
because those would already be reassigned students.
okay. So you would already reach that population. Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Yeah, that was
And that makes sense.
mistakenly put in there.
Oh, I see. Because this is a reassignment by you. Okay.
Onto the enrollment process.
Okay,
Which
well-
used to be the transfer enrollment
Yeah.
process.
The transition.
We're now
Transition.
calling this the enrollment process for school year 2012, 2013. I didn't change anything from Friday on this. I just retitled it because there was some confusion on what transition meant, and so we thought we'd be more specific.
And what you're on now? What document are you on now?
It says transition enrollment process.
Because we're done with administrative guidelines.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Will we get these drafts before the next board meeting?
You'll get them on Friday.
Okay.
So let me go back to the transition.
This seemed pretty clear to me,
Okay.
especially.
Streamlined, I think.
Yes, especially with the title. And this will be in a poster in every McDonald's. No, I'm
Will be.
serious about that. We ought to put it on the
Well,
the
on those-
placemats that go to
tray liners.
to go to tray liners. I'm not teasing about that. You may, laugh. But really get it out there. As many places.
We have a marketing committee that's contemplating some of these best ways to,
Yeah.
market these changes, and I'm sure they'll come up with some things that we haven't even thought about.
Yeah. I just thought about trailerers.
I did have, this is the area that I was a little confused in our last meeting because I think the term of grandfather, this goes specifically to the 160 students that are currently transferring that you're talking about grandfathering. Is primarily
They're involved in this.
because I was
They're not the only target, though, because there's tons of movement here.
well, but I think the large part of the list was derived from the 205 students that you provided us a copy of. I mean, that's a large part of the number that you're talking about grandfathering.
It's a good portion of them.
Because my question, and I just want to make sure that we want to grandfather that many, because there's a few big chunks. We have 39 students that their homeschool was full, so therefore they were transferred. So I'm assuming unless they're wanting to go back to their homeschool, the ones that would want to remain would be those that we would want to grandfather. But a big chunk of them, there were 76 students that moved during the school year. And I know it's our policy, and I agree with the policy, and I think it's a great thing that we keep those students in the school through their year. But those 76 students that moved during that school year, would they not fall back into a home district?
Yes,
So that 76 would come off this 204 number.
correct.
They would have to re-enroll, reapply in
Yeah.
the new.
Following the process.
Right.
So, which was then 19, there was another group that was listed as parental choice. There were 19 of those transfers. And oddly enough, all but one of those schools are closing. So there's another 18 that comes off the list. And then we had, this is where I got the 17 parent-family groups. And then we had 15 that were unhappy with their previous school and wanted to do another school. Well, 10 of those schools are closing. So what I see as a grandfather list, just, there's some that's siblings or social concerns or child care. I mean, that number I see it well below 100 students. So I guess I was just trying to understand where we're coming up with so many students that you were wanting to grandfather next.
Well, you just want to make sure you cover everybody.
Yeah.
When we refer to that in number 2. We don't use
On the transition?
Yes. We don't refer to that as grandfathering. We call that continued enrollment. Students to be granted continued enrollment in their current building. And then we have 3 categories. Students who have elected to enroll in the Elizabeth Starr Academy. Students displaced from their home districts because of enrollment caps per Administrative Guideline 5120.
Which that number we don't really know yet, right?
We do know.
From last year.
Oh, well, assuming that they don't want to go back to their home school.
Right.
So that number would be 39, which 21 of those were ESA, so.
And then students enrolled from residences outside the Richmond Community Schools. And so all of those students will be surveyed to determine whether they want to stay in their assigned school or go to their home schools, in which case, the C, students enrolled from residents outside Richmond Community Schools may not be quite the same. But
So the students who have elected to enroll in ESA have preference over the students that were displaced?
would the students who are displaced in ESA?
Well, students displaced from their home districts because of enrollment caps.
That's last year's enrollment
Well,
caps.
I know, but I'm thinking, but isn't this going to serve us for this next year, for the transition?
It's conceivable that they could be given preference over those students displaced. I'm not sure how many students do we have displaced from
Well,
ESA.
He just said.
21.
21.
Mostly kindergarten.
See, to me, it seems as though,
First graders, a lot of first graders.
I don't know,
Rising kindergartners.
I don't know if one should have preference over the other. That's what I'm,
Well, I think the way we looked at it was we made a pact with those students who have chosen ESA when we set the school up, that it was going to be a school of choice, and it would be about a 50-50 with students in district, out of district. We're trying to maintain that consistency. I know what you're saying.
Well-
One group or the other is going to get, a negative hand in that.
That was the other question I had with ESA. When I was looking at the numbers, the projected numbers now, they may have changed since last Friday or whatever. Essentially, they had 3 classrooms at every grade level next year, or projected, except for one. I think it was the 3rd grade. They had 2, yet they still had an open room. So, essentially, it could be a 3-section school. And I think they had 2 rooms left open for preschool. So I guess one of the questions I have is, with it being an open enrollment school and us trying to determine the boundaries, should we set some type of enrollment out of district or in district, or based on classrooms? I mean, how are you going to allocate? I mean, how would you allocate that, since you would have 3 sections? When you're trying to say you have a home district.
But that just means 25 kids times 3 is 75, and you divide, now you might have a half a kid somewhere, so.
Well, but I was thinking we had 80, I think the number we had was 80 students that elected into the program. I think that was that not the number that we had last? I can't really remember for sure.
It was about 50% of their
yeah, about
enrollment.
half of them.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well,
I guess I was just, that's going to be,
That will be its own separate set of guidelines.
Yeah.
And I believe that those are in existence. I mean, they've been moving from some guidelines in the past. Are you asking about
well, I'm just wondering whether
in their kindergarten enrollment, they take about 50% of the seats, and they allow outside the district to take those seats.
well, I think one of the things we're dealing with ESA is the high mobility. And so I'm wondering if it appears that most of those students were kindergartners that were displaced from ESA, correct?
And
Is
first
that-
graders.
First grade.
They'll be kindergarten and first grade?
well, we just had 39 students that had to transfer because their grade level was full, and 29 or 21 of those were ESA.
So I'm wondering what, it'll be interesting to see what, if those people,
Are still there.
well, if they're still there, but if they really want to attend their school within their attendance boundary, and then if that might cause us to, or you to need to reconsider the number of grades, sections per.
Yeah. Well, and the difficulty for me is that while all of these numbers are snapshots, what our enrollment history has shown is that today's snapshot doesn't mean that that's tomorrow's, let alone next week's or next fall. And so I think we're making an educated guess, and you can't make a policy, or really can't write a policy for today's distribution. I mean, I think
It has to be broad.
it has to be a broad look. And after enrollment, or after registration, not enrollment, after registration, we may have to come back and take a look at some of the specifics.
Are we
Okay.
ready to move on? What I'd like to do now is move to the boundaries map And Ron Mays has provided you a copy of a revised map based on changes discussed at the last board meeting.
Is that up on the wall anywhere?
It is not that one. So the one, is this the one with the colored diagonal lines?
Yeah, it is.
That's existing.
But you should know you have two
These are the proposed.
plans in front of you. The one plan with the colored lines is the impact of the new boundary versus the old boundary.
Oh, okay.
New boundary versus the old boundary.
So the diagonal line shows where school boundaries were.
The original boundary?
Yes.
Not the
Okay.
new old boundary.
Don't go there.
Do we have an electronic version?
Let me go ahead a second here.
Look at the strange, what we did to get Highland kids, get Highland full.
Okay, this is what we're talking about. And just to give you what you have in front of you, let's look at Fairview District right now. Okay, that's the new boundary line of Fairview. This yellow line right here is what it is today,
Oh, okay.
and it went into the Crestdale District.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, looking at Westview, this dashed line right here is what it is today, and we established the new line as Peacock Road. The other line that's up there is a bunch of streets that is not a straight line, and so that was the impact there. Then this little corner right here, today, this little corner and right in here, today, they go to Crestdale. But this corner specifically, we've talked about before, that's the old Baxter area, that some of them go to Fairview, some of them go to Westview, and some of them go to Crestdale. But the district, today,
That's Pam's.
they should all be going to Crestdale.
Fairview.
Fairview.
Right. But today, that's Crestdale up here today.
Okay.
But right now, they're going to Fairview. They had their choice.
Gotcha.
Okay? And then the bottom part of Westview, right in here, went to Garrison. But we brought the line, again, along 27 and Liberty Pike, along in here, and that's what established Westview. And where it comes a little more complicated is that Vale, where I show Vale, Vale went east and west, and so that the green lines right here is Vale today. We changed Vale to go north and south, which incorporated most of the C.R. Richardson kids. If you look at all these dashed lines right here, that's C.R. Richardson. Most of them go to Vale, but some of them are going to Crestdale. From right here, up here is Crestdale.
So are those the only two schools that the CR kids are going to go to?
Yes. Well, there'll be some, could possibly be going to Charles, where they were CR students today, but they were in the Charles or Garrison district.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I
And so,
understand
and then here's where the Garrison district wrapped around C.R. Richardson right in here,
Right.
and they're all, of course, going to Charles. And then Highland Heights dipped down into next to Star District right in here, which are now all going to go to Crestdale, and will follow New Paris, the railroad, actually not New Paris Pike, but will follow the railroad, which will separate Crestdale and Charles. I think what Dr. Borf was wanting to show you here was this little sliver right here,
Sure.
and then how where the C.R. Richardson students are going in relationship to Vale and Crestdale.
This
So
this
the-
helps a lot. This map does.
The green,
Makes it a lot
I
clearer.
guess the green slanted in the center, right
here.
there.
Right here is Vale as it is today.
Right, now, so that section, the left, that green section right there that you're pointing to now
We'll
is
be going to Crestdale.
going to Crestdale. So what we were going all the way down with Crestdale to L Street, now you're changing it to E Street?
No, it's L
No.
Street instead of Warren Lake.
Vale will be in this district right here, will go from Wernley Road up to, I think it's L Street, and make an L, which is what we had talked about last time we wanted to do.
So the boundary between Vale and
It's hard to see
Crestdale
that.
is 27, but is it 27 8th Street, 27 9th Street?
27 9th Street.
It's 9th Street, so everything west of 9th Street,
Right.
because that
Right. That's right.
is a block difference.
Yep.
But a question that you were asking just a minute ago about Elizabeth Starr, they're projecting, they meaning the staff at Elizabeth Starr, are projecting K through 4, 96 students that would be coming from these districts that would go into their school for their special program. That's the number they're predicting. And we've taken that in consideration when we formulated the school's number of students per classroom.
Questions? Thanks for
Thank
doing this.
you.
It really helped.
This here, though, this section right here still is going to Crestdale, right?
Exactly right.
This green section right here.
This section right here now will be going to Vale. This section right here also will be going to.
Oh, this here's Crestdale as well?
Yes, uh-huh.
Oh, so we,
New plan. This one right here, see? Right there is Vale. This, from here, which is this line right here, is this section right here. And this section right here is this section right here.
oh, okay.
Does if we were to take
And that
All
goes
Crestdale.
from L.
Main Street to the river and put all of that Vale, that makes it Vale so overcrowded we can't do that.
we would have to add a major addition onto Vale.
We could put a third story.
That's,
I assumed that, yeah.
the other thing that we've done, in looking at the intermediate school, then everything east of the valley goes to Test, and everything west goes to Dennis. Right now, there are some students at Vale that go
went to Dennis.
But that would change, and that pretty well equals out both the Test and Dennis attendance.
May I, one observation, and the reason I ask about 9th Street and 8th Street, kids between the river and 9th Street would have to be bused no matter where they went because it's a huge, major quadruple lane highway.
Right.
And I think that's important to say. We're not, even though it might feel as though some of those are closer to the Vale School, given the highway, it makes it imperative that we transport them.
And we tried to, that's one reason why the Vale District and Star are separated by Main Street, is because of
Right.
that traffic
Right.
barrier there.
Well, you have said this over and over again, that geographic and infrastructure barriers are part of the reason for
That's-
making these
that's
lines
exactly
as
right,
they
and
are.
that's-
And we need to keep reminding people of
And
that.
that's what happened right here
Yes,
with this little sliver because of Peacock Road versus the way it was.
yeah.
And that's what happened here with Highland and Charles, is the railroad and portions of it, New Paris Pike.
Right.
I need all The way we have the current boundaries drawn, though, because the map that we have over there with the circles for,
Yes.
those circles were based on a half a mile?
The smaller circle is a half mile, the larger circle is a mile. Radius.
Because I didn't know if we established the boundaries by walking distance and then made it open enrollment beyond that, if that would be more flexible for the future. I mean,
Open enrollment beyond the walking area?
yeah, make it open enrollment beyond, just as I was, because so many of those schools, some of those boundaries,
The mile overlaps, the half mile.
well, the half mile
just
overlaps.
touches.
The half mile overlaps on 3 of the schools, right?
They touch.
The greatest number of our students would not be, they would not be able to have choice then.
Okay.
Just because we show the half mile and mile, I'd venture to say that very few of them walk today. Because there's some pretty major, obstructions to get to school walking
Absolutely.
the half mile or the mile.
Yeah, that's true.
What's next?
Okay, what comes next is the projected enrollment chart. Each of you has a projected enrollment chart. And on that chart, we list across the top the caps, not the targets, but the caps. And let's just walk through that. At kindergarten, let's say. At Vail, we have 84 students, and given the cap of 21, we have a rather perfect situation. Okay?
If they stay.
But no
At
wiggle
Charles, though, we have 5 classrooms and more than 91 students. So there is some capacity at Charles to take on some new students who might want to transfer into that building. And that's a good thing, because if you look at Star, there are 2 classrooms, and we don't provide a seat for every student who's, a possible enrollee.
Wait
So-
a minute, I don't understand that.
Are these projected kindergarten numbers or
They're projected.
projected?
So if you project 50 at kindergarten with our cap at 21, aren't you going to need 3 rooms?
No,
But there's only 2.
no, we're only providing 2.
What
Which
happens?
means those other students
Yeah.
would have to choose one of the open seats at one of the other schools.
But what happened if you had 75 kids show up?
You know what?
Then we would have
Free room.
more
And it's
rooms.
Star,
Okay.
I wasn't looking at
What,
it.
what did you base your projections on?
This year's enrollment.
Okay, so you didn't take an average of the last
No, we did
4 or
not.
5 years?
Did not.
So, given our history, well, never mind.
Well, given our history, this last kindergarten classroom class was a fairly good-sized class. So we assumed probably more than we'll be dealing with.
It would be kind of interesting to take, let's say, the last 5 years and just do an average just to see how close.
And that's easy to do. We could do that. You'll notice, now coming down below, we have 452 students that we would be projecting. Capacity, if you have 22 classrooms and a cap of 21, you have a capacity of 462 students. So we could take on 10 more.
I don't understand. Westview was 69. We only have 3 rooms, so
That'd be 63.
they have to decide where
So
to
six-
go, even
six
if it's in
students.
their home.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Unless we get enough of them, people moved in.
It's a whole different philosophy, folks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Than just adding teachers.
And our
because of
numbers
a
could be
building
completely
capacity.
Absolutely.
See, I've already forgotten. I've read so many things tonight. So do we have a process?
We do.
Yep.
And is it kind of a first come, first serve, or how do we determine?
The process for those new students coming next year will be
Enroll in your home school district.
you enroll in your home school district, and if there are more students than there are seats,
And we would
They-
transfer them. It would be a reassignment.
it would be the reassignment. They would have an option of transferring into schools with open seats.
And we would
But how do
provide
we
transportation.
determine that?
How do we determine which six
first-
students?
How, yeah.
First come, first serve.
First
Or
serve.
lottery for the whole?
Well, it's going
the
to
whole
have to
group?
be first come, first serve.
First come, first serve, and then do we provide transportation if they're
If
just...
they're reassignment.
We do.
Well, would it?
That's one of the
would it
unintended
be-
consequences of classroom
would-
caps.
I mean, we have a time period. We have like 6 weeks that you got the enrollment process open.
Yeah.
If we get 6 students over in that 6-week period of time, then would it maybe not be fair to do a lottery? And then after the deadline of accepting the applications, then do for
Now,
first
just a
come, first
minute.
served?
We only run into that at kindergarten, don't we?
We need to think about that because, let's say a family has 2 students, even 2.
It is by lottery.
Oh,
It is by lottery.
the whole thing?
Yes.
Yes, that's what I thought. I thought the group was going to be the way that was going to be done.
Yes.
But
It is
even
by
at
lottery.
that, parents who have 2 children and there may be capacity at one grade level, but not at another grade level.
And siblings are a major priority for transfer.
We covered that
requests.
in...
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So is that in the?
It's in there.
So it'd be after the priority,
Okay.
after you go through the priority,
One
then
of
you
those
would do the lottery.
unintended consequences of a really good rule.
You know, this is a very different approach to assigning students and enrollment, but it does balance it forces the use of your building in a much more efficient
Right.
way. It's,
And keeps your numbers low in the
Well, and
classroom.
protects the
It does.
class size. We heard
Yes.
that
Exactly.
over and over and over and over.
Right.
that's right. In every, and let's go back to this chart. The total number of kindergartners is 452. The capacity is 462. The ratio of students to teacher would be 20.5. Now, that's over your target, but it's under the cap across the district. There will be some classrooms that will even be right at the target or under. So but what we have to look at is an overall ratio. And if you go across this chart, you'll notice that across the chart, we do not exceed the caps at any grade level. And in some cases, we don't exceed the target either. And that goes as well for 5th and 6th.
Well, of course, it,
I was going to say in the policy, but I know we haven't put the caps in the policy. But should we say something to the effect in order to protect class size
That's where the paragraph.
and the
That's a paragraph,
reassignment? Is that,
Yeah, that's where we talked about making sure we put
Okay.
language in the policy that
Okay.
referred to.
all right?
This chart is very consistent with the policy
Okay.
and the guidelines.
And these numbers don't reflect, because we had some conversation of creating across the district a high ability 3, 4, 5, or 3, 4 classroom of moving into the Hibbard building.
At some point.
We do not project them into the Hibbard building, but we do have down below 2 future classrooms. I mean, these are possibly 2 future classrooms at Hibbard. So we've noted that. But no, we have not moved them in this chart.
Well, because I was thinking of the capacity at the Hibbard building, and regardless of what the direction of that building is in the future, I mean, even the programs that are moving into it primarily on the 2nd floor have actually, they've taken a lot of space. I mean, they could actually even be condensed if we needed more classrooms. Because, I mean, with the way that those programs is allocated the space, it's really reduced the total capacity that's available of that building. So, And I was almost wondering, going back to the capacities with, when we approved the plans for Crestel last board meeting. I mean, would it
Didn't
be?
approve the plans, we approved the spec.
Well, we approved the schematic drawing of the layout. And we've had conversation about maybe a future building at maybe needed at Charles, or who knows how our capacity is going to turn out. You're missing a classroom.
This is Crosdale.
There will be more talk on that.
Okay, well, one of my thoughts would be, would it cost us too much as you're going through the drawings to get an alternate ad to go ahead and enclose that and make it a courtyard?
Before we go on to that, Jeff, can we bring closure to this and move on? Because I'd like to get into
Well, and the
I'm okay with this.
buildings.
The problem with the chart is, it's kind of another one of it's a stab at this particular time, and
It could change a lot.
But what it does, it takes the numbers that we have to the best of our knowledge.
Yep.
Right. Well,
and
it gives us
balances
an
our
idea
enrollment.
it says who can,
how serious we're going to have to be about sticking to our gaps, because
There are grade levels.
it's going to happen right away.
That's right. There are grade levels where we don't have sufficient capacity in some buildings, and we'll be requesting that people give us some options that they're interested in for other buildings where there are capacities.
Well, I think it makes it so much easier that it's even, it's fair, it's the process. I mean, it's
Fair and balanced.
Yeah, that's. I mean,
Isn't that a news program?
I think that. I'm sorry you have to even bring that up. Oh,
Sorry.
When we talked,
52 spots.
I thought you said that you fill the spots in the district.
is that a channel?
They enroll, and that was to encourage enrollment.
yeah,
Lottery referred to the transfers.
right. I thought so too.
That would be a motivation.
For this coming year.
Yeah.
Yes.
To get them to go ahead and register
Register
now.
early.
Yes.
In case people didn't hear what he said.
I didn't hear
Yeah,
what you
so
said.
pull your microphone close and do that again, because that whole point is
In
important.
our discussion at Cabinet, we, with our policy for next, or transition process next year, in order to encourage students to register, it would be first come, first serve. The lottery that we had referred to transfer placements after all those had been filled.
Okay.
So you think maybe we ought not do the lottery on that period of time? I mean, if you have an open enrollment period of, I think it's 6 weeks. Does that sound right?
All the way down.
Something like that, yeah.
I mean, isn't that early enough that I guess after you go through and you take a look at your siblings and you take a look at your extenuating circumstances and I don't know if it would be a more fairer approach to, instead of saying, "Whoop, sorry."
Well, because what you're saying is registration, register early, and then we'll make decisions as to whether or not we have enough for 3 classes instead of 2 classes. Yes?
Yeah.
And then after that, when you start talking transfer, that's when the lottery kicks in? Is that what you said?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
At least
But the
that's
lottery,
what we
there wouldn't
discussed.
be any lottery there.
Wow. If
What's that?
there was...
There-
Well, we're talking about that enrollment, encouraging people to enroll early when we do the early enrollment, because at some point you'll make a determination whether you're going to have 2 or 3 classes. If you have enough enrollment to have 3 classrooms at Westview of kindergartners, you would do that, right?
If we had sufficient enrollment.
If you have space and enrollment.
What we're
Then-
going to do, it says in C, just to address that, in the transfer process, principals will determine the number of seats available per grade level by multiplying the number of sections by the target number of students per grade level, okay? Grade level enrollments will be determined using the enrollment targets, okay? So they're going to publish that information. They will populate the list with the names of students by grade level residing in their attendance area, as well as students who have been granted continued enrollment in that building. So there are students who have been grandfathered in, okay? The lottery to determine transfers will be conducted by the principals based on open seats and students who want those open seats.
I want us to think about, I don't know that I have a better way right now, but I always get concerned about first come, first serve.
I do too.
And because we know that some of our population will be right there. And some of them may not even realize that enrollment is going on. And so I just want us to think about how we can encourage and help everyone to be at that first come, first serve, because
Well, we've talked about sending teams out into the neighborhoods to recruit.
Well, parent-teacher conferences would be a really
Parent-teacher conferences
valuable
are coming
way.
up this coming month, in March, and we've talked about using some of that to secure
Good.
those
Well, and I
needs.
know the marketing group has been very excited about the idea of doing enrollment early, because some of the others, schools in our neighborhood do their enrollment push early. And so for us to be able to sort of be in that mix is important. And then you can make some decisions about, do you want to have more classes? Do you have the enrollment to have more classes? If you know the numbers ahead of time, then there won't be as much need for lottery pulls and those kinds of things, because you'll be able to know ahead of time.
That's
And so
right.
encouraging people to register early is one of the things that we talked a lot about.
Yeah, and the lottery, go ahead, I heard something.
The lottery, I believe, is just for the circumstance of this year. After that, that other transfer policy kicks in.
Right.
Right.
Yep,
You're
that makes
right.
sense.
Okay.
Okay, we move now to what that enrollment chart does to the building, the schematics that have been included in your packet tonight. And Mr. Mays, you want to walk us through those buildings and how that impacts those buildings?
Okay, well, let's look at the first slide we have up here, which is Crestdale. And the interesting thing about Crestdale is the fact under the new formula, we actually end up with one open room here, and that we were going to use the stage as a music room, and so we've ended up with another open room in this area, so now that we do have a music classroom. We have our kindergartens, we would have 4, and we would have 3 of them would have 21 students, and 1 would have 20. And then looking at the first grade, they're all 19 students, and there's 4 classrooms there. Then we go back over here to the second grade, and we have 24 students in 3 second grades, I'm sorry. And then we have 3 third grades of 22 students each, and then 3 fourth grades of 24 students each. So that we do still have an open classroom.
You want to talk about Crestdale, just a little bit about this open space?
We had all along had talked about 4 rooms added on to Crestdale, and so when we came up with this arrangement, and we still had basically 2 open rooms, and because we are so close to that $4 million budget that was established, that so we eliminated this classroom right here, and so that we still have the 4 here so that we can project the additions coming onto here. But what this really does for us is that this classroom, when it was down here, it was only 10 feet between the kindergarten classroom and this outside wall. So by taking this classroom out, now we have sufficient natural light coming in here, plus what this has created for us with the preschool and kindergarten, we could make this strictly a kindergarten play area, and that they would be controlled by this area right here, and that their classrooms are right there, and they just go out and go into that space there. So it
Where's the play area
it has really helped us in the enrollment.
Isn't the play area over there now?
No, the play area right now is
Back
up
there.
is up here.
There, okay.
Way across here. Right now, there's a drainage problem in here, and it's always wet. And so we're going to address that with some drains.
Well, my question, before you go on,
Okay.
my question on that was, and I'm still going back to, we had the financial outline in the beginning when the master plan was presented, and we still have in our budget numbers a potential of $960,000 being spent at Charles to build additional classrooms. So I'm not saying that we're going to spend it, but that was a possible projection. That was in our total projection. So what I don't want to do is turn around and build classrooms on at Charles next year, because whether we need portables or we don't need portables, or whether we need classrooms, and that's why I had asked earlier if it would be a big deal to get an alternate ad to go ahead and close that quad, like you had talked about at the last board meeting, to see what that number would be in total to the possible future expenditure at Charles. Unless you're standing here telling me now our enrollment numbers, I could take that $1 million off the table.
I think we can say that.
I think so. Good.
So, I just, part of the construction, I'd rather do it all now and do it if we're going to have that need. So, because I would have guessed it probably we could enclose that for under $1 million.
Right, right. But then you'd have to redistrict again to get students back up
To
there.
get more kids up there, yeah.
Yeah, but now's the time to do it.
Yeah, true.
Aaron?
Well, and I was going to say, that $1 million in December was the cost to Charles, but it's never been on the plate after the December 14th approval. What we brought in was a $5.8 million project for Hibbard, Crestdale, Dennis.
And I understand that, but it was still, we still had projected cost if we needed to do this, or we needed to build four or five classrooms. We still had the projected total of possible future expenditures of $960,000.
Correct.
And so, because I think what we're, as we tighten up the classrooms, as we tighten up, it's going to be different because we're so used to so much space.
Right.
So,
Right.
I just don't. Just trying to look at what would make sense at a given time. So.
Right. With this present plan and the classrooms configurations and number of students, we're making the most efficient use of the building.
So how much money are we saving by taking that one classroom off?
About $200,000. And see, we really could eliminate this and not have an open classroom and just build 3.
But now you are getting into maybe we shouldn't go that far.
Yeah.
But, I mean,
Well,
then
yeah.
then you're no flexibility built in.
I don't want to go so far the other way that we regret and all of a sudden we need space real quick. So.
And I look at some educational possibilities with that, with, again, the collaboration, and even the 3rd and 4th grade, they're together. There's some possibilities. I think we need to leave the flexibility.
And it's all open, too. I mean, you can
Absolutely.
travel from 3rd grade all the way to the 4th grade at the furthest point and not go in the hallway.
Okay.
The preschool is one of these preschools, the special needs preschool?
We have 2 special needs preschool, and we have 2
Oh, those
regular
are-
preschool.
And then life skills are up here. Gotcha,
Okay.
I see.
And then the 3 life skills right there.
Okay. I guess I didn't know what ECSE stood for. Now I do.
That's okay, I didn't either. Dr. Parker's been educating me. on
We're
what that
learning a lot,
means.
huh?
Okay, looking at Fairview, again, with the numbers that we're working with now, we're able to bring back in a room for the Boys and Girls Club, which has been very beneficial to Fairview and the community. We're able now to keep these 2 rooms as special ed, and that we still have an open classroom, and we're able to put a computer lab in, and we still have a preschool with 4 kindergartens of 19 each and one at 18. Our first grades are 22. Our second grades, we have 1 at 23 and 2 at 22, and then 25 at our 2 third grades and 24 and 25 at our 4th grades.
So if we really became ambitious marketers, we would have space for another preschool there.
That's right.
Or a 4th grade, or...
That's right. And actually we have that in every school.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that and we'll look at it in a minute, that helped us at Charles, we were able to maybe take that preschool out on a temporary basis and move it to Star, so now we have 2 preschools at Star.
And one better not be in that little small closet they're using now.
That's right. You're absolutely right, because there's Star right here. What we've done at Star, we have 2 kindergartens and 21 students each right here, and then and those are designed for kindergarten. We come down the main hallway, and these 2 classrooms right here are now the preschool, close to this outside door.
Nice.
Then we go into the 3 first grades of 21, 21, and 21. We have second grade of 25. This area right here now we can use as special ed, which is a nice area, and we're still able to maintain our art classroom.
So, no, wait a minute. Do we have only the first floor of Star?
Yeah. On the second floor,
no,
you should have both, actually.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Okay, on the second floor of Star,
Wait a minute, where are
we
you?
have, again, another second grade,
No, I
and we
know,
have 2 third grades of 20 and 21, and another third grade here of 20, and then 3 classrooms of 21, 21, and 22. Now, the thing that does for us at Star is that we're able to keep the music room, and now we still have an open area that is really a nice area that they can go into and use as a project room.
Why are we just doing 2 kindergartens at Star?
Those are what
We're only projecting 50 students there.
the numbers there, yes.
Okay.
And if there are more, we could use one of the preschool rooms. I mean, there's space.
There's
Flexibility.
space if enrollment should really be an issue.
Okay, looking at Vail, we have a preschool at Vail, and then a kindergarten in this nice large area right here, which we may talk to the principal and see how they would like to see that. So we have kindergarten here, and then we have 3 more kindergartens of 21 each, so we have 4 kindergartens at Vail, and then we have 4 first grades, 22, 22, 22, and 22 on the first floor. On the second floor, we then have our second grade, and we have 2 second grades at 25 each, and we have 3 third grades at 18, 18, and 18, and 2 fourth grades of 23 and 23. We had a computer room on the first floor, which we're going to move up to the second floor, and again, we have another open classroom for future space.
Doesn't look like there's going to be too many rooms for transfer requests, though.
Well, it depends if the enrollment.
Yeah, if enrollment doesn't hit the
Yeah.
numbers, right.
At Westview, we have 2 preschools, then we have 3 kindergarten at 21, 21, and 21, and then we have 3 first grades at 22 each. We come down the hallway here. Right now, they have music in this little room that's supposed to have been a community room that the outside was supposed to use it, but they were going to use that as foot patrol for the police department, and that's never developed. So we're taking the music room out of there and putting it into a regular classroom where it used to be.
Never knew about it.
And so now we have 2 second grades at 25 each. We have 2 third grades at 25 each, and then 2 fourth grades at 24 and 23, and we have 2 open classrooms there.
Using spaces.
I think we should put another preschool at Vale.
Charles? Well, that's still a possibility if we get the enrollment.
Yeah, yes. I'm going to jump around just a little bit because this is the way the slides are. At Dennis, what we're looking at Dennis would be this one band room here that is used only 1 period in the morning. We're going to make that 5th and 6th grade music because the stairs to get up to the upper floors is right here, and we felt that, and these students would be passing when the other students are already in their classroom, so that for 1 period of the day they could use that as band, and the other periods use it for 5th and 6th grade music. And you want to say, well, with all the band instruments and chairs and how do you do that? Well, right now, they totally clean that room out, and you wouldn't even know band's in there. And it just sits empty for the rest of the day. Then we're going to move the art room from the 2nd floor to this area right here for the 7th and 8th grade art, and that room is way underused, and we're going to reconfigure this computer room so that it could be used the same, and we already have water in this area, and it would make, and storage, and make a really nice art room, because on the 2nd floor we want to make a 5th and 6th grade art room out of the present art room that's there now, and which is oversized, and we want to cut that art room in half and put a 6th grade at that level. Now we are keeping the 7th and 8th grade science rooms on the 2nd floor because they're designed for science rooms. They have all the water.
And Mr. Morey will be ecstatic.
And it will be too costly
Yeah.
to move them around. And again, the location of them is great because there's a stair right there.
Right.
And there's a stair right there for that science room, and we felt that that would still work. Then the 5th grade would be in their classrooms right in here, self-contained. The 6th grade would be right up here, and the computer lab would be right here. So the whole 2nd floor would be 5th and 6th grade only, except for the 2 science classrooms.
Nice.
That's pretty good.
Well, that Dennis is much more amenable to that than I would have ever
Absolutely.
guessed. I mean, it just fits, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Looking at Hibbard first floor, we would have the art area right in this classroom here, and then we have 2 classrooms outside the cafeteria and the gym that would be for future logos or whatever programs that we put in there. And then as we've always talked that the life skills would be in this area, and generally they're from 5 to 11 students at this point. I think the largest classroom they have at Test right now is 11. So they would be in this area. On the 2nd floor, then the logos would have 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, language arts, and science. Would take this wing right here with a project room in the middle for project room now, but future growth. The early college would swing around here, and they would have these classrooms, and we have 2 future rooms here for growth, for early college and or logos, plus they would use those as project rooms. And then we have, in this location here would be the computer lab.
On the first floor, what do they do in that special services room? Because that's a pretty large room.
In the special services room, there are all files that they have that they administer. You know more about that than I do. And plus, we have, I think, 2 full-time people that work in there. One full-time person works in there, in this area right here. They also they have close contact with the people in this area here. That's why we put it so close. And this room is still a big room, and there's water and everything in there. And that right now there's no more in here than what's in here. So really, the cost would be the same.
Yeah, I just wondered what it was for because I didn't know.
There's been a lot of discussion about that special services area.
Yeah, it's where we keep all the district special education files. So
Okay.
all of those archive files and active files are there. The school psychologists work out of those offices. Itinerant teachers for our visually impaired, our hearing impaired students.
Okay.
Okay, here's test. And this was the only slide that I have, and I apologize for crossing this out. Don't even look at this future area right here.
Nothing to see.
Because what we've done is now, this was a logos room, and we're turning those back into classrooms. This was a logos room, and we're turning that back into classrooms. I'm sorry, life skills. Yeah, thank you. Life skills. So then our 6th grade classrooms would be in this wing right here of 25 each, and then we would have 1 6th grade classroom here. They can control the traffic so that the traffic for these rooms right here will now be along here. And so that these will be isolated. This is the only one that there will be traffic. But again, these students would not be in the halls when the other 7th and 8th grades are moving from class to class.
Where will the 7th and 8th grades be? On the other side of the, can you go back to the?
Yes, these are science.
Here?
These are science rooms and technology rooms in here, and then they have classrooms all in this area, and they'll have, this is what they're using now. On the 2nd floor, we're able to keep all the 5th grade up here with 1 6th grade in this location now. So this would all be 5th grade, and again, nobody would be up here except 5th or 6th graders. I've got to get back to the beginning here a second.
Could you go back to STAR a minute?
Okay, right there it is.
Because I know that at STAR, they have an office out in the hallway there. Are you going to be able to alleviate that? And then I think a couple people maybe share an office. I think maybe the CIS person is out in the hallway.
It's right. That's right there?
Right there.
Right.
Okay. What we're going to do is once we get these configurations set, then I'm going to sit down with each principal and talk to them about how they use those spaces. There's several schools that are filled with books that they used in the book program last year. You know, it changed, and so we've talked to them about they still use some of those, but putting those books in the libraries and not in these rooms, which were designed for just exactly what you're talking about.
Okay. So you're going to try to...
We're going to look at every
Get
space.
people out of the hallways.
Because I think also
Fairview has a big problem with space. Well, Vail does too, and it's because of two rooms taken up by those books that they don't get into very much.
Well, they do
Yeah,
get
let's
in.
not go
Yeah.
there.
But we're going to put them in the library. But we talked
Don't
about
go there with me.
but we talked about putting them in the library, right?
We spend a lot of money on leveled books.
That's
Okay.
what we did.
Sorry.
Please.
But anyway,
Recess, recess.
Might be time for one of those 5-minute breaks.
Yeah, let's take a
Standing out here, there's nobody that can kick me to tell me to be quiet.
Of all of these pictures, of all of the pictures, the one question and concern I have is that lone sixth grade room kind of stuck over there at Test. If there's any way we can figure out a way to get it closer to either the upstairs room or where those 4 are, I think it would behoove us to do that. Let's just think about that.
Well, okay,
I don't.
Dennis is pretty well set. I mean, it's really
It's
no-brainer.
very amenable to that.
But test is just tentative, right? We've just really been looking at test.
Okay. Well, as a concern, from what I've heard from lots of, I will tell parents, let's make sure that we really have
Try to
to put
keep
that
them
over there if we
separate.
don't, and if we have to.
I think the one school that we haven't talked about is Charles, and it has the biggest impact on our new guidelines. The fact that for right now, on a temporary basis, we took a preschool out and we put it in Star, so that Dr. Parker said she needed 8, and so we have our eight preschools. So we at Charles, we're able to put our kindergarten. We have 5 kindergarten rooms up here, 18, 18, 18, 18, and then we start first grade, 21 and 21. Now, this first grade right here is now an existing art room, but on a temporary basis, they've talked about the grade levels that we have here, that the art teacher could work off of a cart, or we've been talking with Mark, and we were talking about maybe we could combine music and art, because when they don't have music, this room is empty, and that room could be used for art. But what this plan does for us is we put our special ed where it is now, and then 2 more first grades, and then we have our second grades along here, 21, 21, 21, and 21, and another second grade, and then our third grade along here, and our fourth grade up here, no portables.
thank you.
No portables.
And now, does this
Even without
include
moving the high ability?
this current year, they have 2 separate high ability
Right.
classes, and so
Right.
does this include that?
They're still here, and it's up to a recommendation whether you take those 2
Hibbert or
classrooms, and we do have room at Hibbert for those 2 classrooms.
Then you
And
have room
they
for
felt
preschool.
that they could have at least 19 students in each
Yeah.
each classroom.
And let's try not to put an art teacher on a
No,
card.
this is a temporary basis
Okay.
on what Jeff was talking about, that at one time, we talked about adding a preschool and another kindergarten, and with this, maybe we don't need the kindergarten, and then maybe a couple classrooms here, and open back up that art room. Yeah. You're right, you're absolutely right.
I mean, they've got so much stuff, I can't imagine.
Bob?
But a lot of the art projects, though, aren't quite as big when you're doing kindergarten through fourth grade
That's
as
true.
you
That
are
makes sense.
That's true.
Yeah.
5th and 6th.
Bob, did you have something?
This plan that we've gone, the policy that Dr. Borf has presented, the grade figurations and the layout on this, does 2 things that I want to keep in mind that we haven't talked about, because we've talked all about operations and students. But number 1, this gets us closer and makes sure that we can assure you that our CPF and rainy day budgets that I'll be bringing to you next week will be met. And as he said, at Crestdale, oh my goodness, that 5th classroom and this, he said, boy, it might be 4.2 or 4.5 million. And the answer is, we've got to relook at it. We've been charged with $4 million, and we make our dollars go. So this plan does that. The policy on enrollment and class size in this nets us 9 elementary classrooms to get us closer to net classroom teachers. Because of that, and still comes within our caps and targets that we're talking about, which then again brings us, why we've started this whole thing, brings us closer to balancing the 2012 budget. So we've put the budget along with parent needs, student needs, the policy to bring this all together. And I just wanted to assure you that this plan is getting us closer there. So if anybody would have asked, what does this do financially, we're that much closer. We're not there yet.
That quote appears in the paper, Bob. That was very, very well said.
Right.
Well, and I'm just, the financial piece of it is the exact question why I'm asking what our future needs are, because, you know, if we have to look at, like we've heard all along, possible classroom additions here or there, I would rather reallocate $200,000 or $300,000 or $400,000 now to save us from spending $1 million later. So that's part of the reasons why I'm asking these questions. So,
Yes.
because I would rather go to the taxpayers now and say, this is what we're doing, why we're doing it. We're getting the construction done and out of the way, so you don't see construction trucks next year. So.
Very well said, but as Mr. May said, we want to make sure we do, if we would put 2 more classrooms this year at Crestdale, then you'd have to
Redraw lines again.
that's redraw the lines and saying now they're coming down here, and those redrawing of lines may be more controversial than 2 classrooms addition at Charles, should the need arise and should we have the need 1, 2, or 3 years from now. Building something we don't need.
Just, I understand that.
Yeah,
So
I would agree.
From this conversation, Dr. Borp, what will you be bringing to us next week?
Well, you'll see, I anticipate that we'll be bringing a recommendation for boundaries and a first read of a policy. And I have no reason to believe we can't hammer out some of the questions that came up tonight, considerations and concerns on the policy. I think that that's very doable, and you'll see a recommendation in your packet for Friday.
And so it will appear as an action item
Under the master plan.
under the master plan for our next agenda. And the other question might come off of that is that we don't vote on the administrative guidelines, correct? We only have to vote for the policy and the boundaries.
Correct. And that's what will be coming to you in the form of a recommendation.
Okay. Thank you. It was a good meeting. Very informative.
This is the average
Thank you.
question.